You're welcome back. Now, Nigeria is preparing for another round of population census, I think it's been over a decade and a half since the last one, I think in 2006. We were supposed to have that between March the 29th to April 2nd. It's now been moved to May 3rd to 5th. And there's a lot of questions surrounding how this is supposed to work. Are we going to be able to count everybody in that short period? How are we going to stand in line? Are we going to wait at home? Let's try and get more information about, all of this that's happening today. Joined us from our Abuja studios by Olanikbekun Evelyn Ariola, who's the director of Census, and Abdullahi Haruna Haruspice, who's a journalist. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon to you too. Let me start with you, madam. These dates have been quite contentious for a lot of people. We've gone through a lot this year, from queuing to get PVCs to queuing to vote. And, there's a lot that's happened in the country and people are wondering, how are these census supposed to work? I don't seem to feel like there's a lot of information out there on how this happens. Give us an idea of what's supposed to happen between the 3rd and 5th of May.
Yeah. Good afternoon, Nigerians. Good afternoon, Buka. Thanks so much for this opportunity and glad to be with you this afternoon. National Population Commission is set to conduct a national census for Nigeria, having waited and worked for the past 17 years after the last census in 2006. And haven't started preparation for this new round since 2014. We have actually put a work plan in place, and a lot of activities have taken place, starting with the pre-census programs, including enumeration area demarcation. This seems to be one of the very first things we do when we are preparing for census. And this actually began in 2014. And when we say enumeration area demarcation, we mean an exercise that involves creating small units from the land areas we have in Nigeria. That is, we are going to every locality, every LGA, in every state, covering every unit within the administrative boundary of every community, and creating smaller units, which we refer to as assignment units, and popularly called enumeration area units. These enumeration areas are the sizable workload which we assume that our enumerator will be able to cover within the days assigned for census. Now, we have been able to successfully delineate the entire country to about 99.6% of the total land area of Nigeria, leaving out a few percentage, that is the few proportion, which we could not gain access to. And having had this magnitude of success in the area of enumeration area demarcation, we have a good tool which now forms basis for our planning. With this frame created, we're able to determine what number of workforce do we require to conduct a census in Nigeria, what resources and materials do we need to do this. And this has also helped us to go ahead to move into other areas of what are the needs of Nigeria now that needs to be covered in our data collection. And all of this we settled down to put together in the questionnaire design and development. And this also was successfully done. As much as possible, stakeholders were involved, data users were invited to come and work with us on the questionnaires. Questions were received from different stakeholders depending on their areas of need. And as much as possible, we have tried to develop a kind of an all-inclusive questionnaire, which we are taking out now to canvass information from individuals.
Sorry to cut you short them. I don't know if you can hear me, because I wanted to get specifically to the 3rd to the 5th of May. These days for the counting, because I want people to understand how those days are supposed to work. That's what I'm trying to find out. Are we sitting at home? Are we going somewhere? I want to understand what's supposed to happen on those days.
Okay. I haven't had all the preparations set, and 3rd of May is supposed to be an enumeration day, commencement of enumeration. And every Nigerian is expected to be in their place of usual residence to be counted. And when we say usual place of residence, that is where you usually reside, sleeps, go to work, and back to your families. Where you are more than 60% of the month of the week. That is where you refer to as a home, as at the day of, as at today, we want to meet you there. So now, enumerators will come in to your household. We already have the areas mapped out into enumeration areas, as I explained earlier. So an enumerator armed with the map for each area will come into each building. Every building has been geocoded. They will visit one building after the other. First of all, we will carry out a kind of building numbering and household listing. That is, we will want to first of all prepare a roster of all households in each enumeration area. So this is where we are taking off from. We do this going house to house, having taken record of every building and every household. Then we come back the second round to come for individual interview, where we have to engage every member of the household as we see them, because census is going to be a de facto. And by de facto, we mean that we count people at sight, and you are counted where you are found. We do not expect that people will move from one location to the other, because the whole essence of the data collection is to be able to generate valid data for planning. And you plan for persons where the resources will be required. And if movement during census distorts the information, then that data will not be very effective for planning. Therefore, we expect everyone to be where they are on a normal day, carrying out their daily routine, go to work, come back home, sleep, and wake up each day.
So I hear you. We're supposed to stay at home, and officials will come to the homes. Is what I just wanted to get.
Yes, you're supposed to stay at home and be counted, because we are not going to count anyone in their place of work.
Okay, I'll come back to you. Let me go now very quickly to Abdullahi. You're a journalist. I know you are a supporter of the census and all of that. But have you been comfortable with the level of publicity that the census that's coming up has gotten? Because there's a lot of people who have wondered, the elections this year have been extremely heavy. Almost nothing else makes the news if it's not about the elections. And it feels like, this could have been done at a different time when, the country was probably a little more settled. I know a lot of people don't even know these dates and when they are holding or what it entails. Is it a public holiday? Are we sitting at home? I've heard people say they're traveling back to their villages. The information seems very thin. Have you been comfortable with the information that Nigerians have gotten about the census?
Thank you very much, Ebuka. I think, to be fair to the census body, there have been some level of buzz around the census. The social media where I belong has been awash with, talks of this very census. You may say that it's not been controversial as usual. Nigerians, we like to trend on the negative. So there hasn't been anything negative as it relates to, the census. If a mere post on social media, for instance, you see the avalanche of young people coming around to inquire about the census, especially those who have actually registered to be enumerators or officials, as the case may be. The hype that is expected may not be there, the controversial one, but to a reasonable level, I think there have been some, reasonable kind of engagement as far as the buzz and the hype it's concerned. We belong. I happen to be a member of a group of social media enthusiasts who have been talking, seriously across the country about this census issue. So to that extent, I think it's been, they've been everywhere. A trip to the airport, for instance, you see, the erection of billboard that talks about the census. When you tune onto your radio, you hear conversations. Like what we're having now is also an attempt to educate Nigerians on what is happening. Like I said, controversy sells. And because there's not been controversy around the census, people think there's not been enough publicity. I think there have been a publicity as far as we're concerned. Then going forward, why the census must happen. We must not wait until there's a Christmas or something special before this happens. We've been yearning for employment. We've been yearning for the best things of life, talking about education, health facilities, and the rest of it. Without census, without proper planning, without knowing the size, the population, the distribution of our population as a nation, the government can actually not plan for us. We've been talking about unemployment. What is even the rate of unemployment? Who are those who have been unemployed? We need to know. So with this kind of, situation or exercise, we're able to know what exactly our concerns. Madam did raise the issue of migration during census. The controversies or the very negative things I've been hearing about it is that there's been this quest for regional supremacy of claiming large ownership or otherwise to this census. It's not supposed to be so. Wherever you reside, wherever you find yourself is where you should be counted, because when you are ill and you need to go to hospital, you won't be transported to Zamfara. So going to Zamfara to say you want to be counted there does not arise. In FCT, for instance, it is based on the availability of human beings that reside and work here that the provision for schools, for hospitals, for markets will be delineated.
Okay, I mean, there's no doubting the fact. Sorry to cut you in, because I don't want us to spend too much time because we have very limited time. I mean, everybody understands the importance of data. Data, no country can work without data, and it's scary that we've gone 17 years without knowing how many we actually are. But you talked about skepticism there, and I think one of the biggest ones for a lot of people has been, how many Nigerians are we really, And a pointer for a lot of people has been the elections. It feels like the harder it has become to inflate election numbers, the lower the number of voters we have seen. And people have tried to relate that to, are we really that many? Unfortunately, our number has been tied to politics a lot in our history. And people are very skeptical about the number of Nigerians we actually are. How confident are you that this would probably be a proper reflection for many people for the first time of how many we are?
Okay, we've migrated from the analog kind of census exercise. You were talking about artificial intelligence. Now we are tech exposed to the census. I'm sure the census body has actually introduced, technology this time around. So it's going to be difficult for people to inflate figures of where or how they do not exist. So this time around, to the best of my own optimism, I think we are in the right time to know the number of persons that we have in Nigeria, or living or dead, as the case may be.
Okay, let me go to Madam now very quickly, because you talked about, going house to house, and that has also been quite a touching point for a lot of people. I met someone earlier this year, he's about 43, who said he has never been counted in Nigeria, and he's lived through at least 2 or 3 census exercises in his lifetime, and he's never been counted. So I wonder, how are you supposed to work with people? I mean, you said you're going to meet your place of residence. There's a lot of fear about, are 3 days enough to count every Nigerian? How many staff do you have to make this possible? We know how complex this country is. What about those who don't have homes? There's homeless Nigerians. Does that mean they will never get counted if I sleep under a bridge or wherever? How do you capture everybody? Or are you going to count a certain number and then make an estimate of the rest?
Thank you very much, Ebuka. Actually, that's a very good question indeed. And to count entire Nigeria takes, one, having a good plan. And having started with a good frame, we are confident that we shall be able to count everyone more than ever before this time around. That is one. Then again, we already told the whole world that we want to conduct a fully digital census for the first time in Nigeria. And that be as it may, implies that we already have a well-laid out plan for that. And this has taken off from the time of enumeration area demarcation, whereby we have actually carved out the enumeration area, digitized them, and more than ever before, we have touched every nooks and crannies of the country. And as such, we have record of every building, every locality where they are, and for every LGA, we already know how many buildings are there as of today. Therefore, and all of these buildings we have, delineated into small units, which we are going to assign to each of our enumerators. So therefore, because and then this has been digitized, hence we are able to leverage on technology to have a good coverage during demarcation. And this has prepared a very good platform for us now to know the entire land area of the country and where the localities are, where the buildings are, and then number of EAs in each of the localities, which informed number of workforce, number of persons, enumerators we will send in there. And as such, we are able to be confident that every building, every locality have enough workforce. And with that, the issue of they have started census today, I have not seen them in 3 days, I've never been counted, will not be there, because as at today, any building, at least every Nigerian in every building, we testify to the fact that at one time or the other, their house has been marked and they have a code on their building. That code every building has been geocoded. And we have all of this being monitored. Once an EA is assigned to an enumerator, we're able to know if they are there. The one that they have not initiated, we're able to know that the enumerator is not yet there. So with the technology we are leveraging on now, we're able to have a good a good view of what is happening in every part of Nigeria. And as such, it is difficult in this new methodology to leave out a particular section of the country.
All right. Thank you very much,
section uncovered.
Well, I'm going to take your word for it.
And for the census date, it's not 3 days, it is 5 days.
5 days. What are the days again?
3rd to 7th of May.
3rd to the 7th of May. Okay, 5 days. Hopefully that's enough. Well, I'll take your word for it. Like I said, we did hear a lot of promises from the INEC. We know how things turned out eventually. So hopefully you don't come back and make excuses for us when this is all over. Thank you very much. I feel like we're going to need to get you back here a few more times before the 3rd of May to continue this conversation. But thanks a lot for joining us. We'll take another break now and be right back. Please stay with us.